Good morning, every students. Today I discuss about the testing of hypothesis. How will you test the hypothesis? So come to the basic concept of testing of hypothesis. Testing of hypothesis can be explained by the following. First is known as null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. As per statistical analysis, we talk about the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. If we compare method A with method B about its superiority, if we proceed on the assumption that both methods are good, then this assumption is known as null hypothesis. If method A is superior or method B is inferior, then stating that alternative hypothesis. Thus, the null hypothesis is generally symbolized by H0 and alternative hypothesis is symbolized as HA. Now we have considered here, suppose we want to test the hypothesis that the population mean mu is equal to the hypothesized mean mu H0 is equal to 100. Then we would say that null hypothesis is that the population is equal to the hypothesized mean 100. Symbolically, we can express the terminology H0 ratio mu is equal to mu H0 is equal to 100. If our sample result do not support this null hypothesis, then we can conclude that something else is true. If we conclude rejecting the null hypothesis, then it becomes as alternative hypothesis. In other words, the set of alternative to the null hypothesis is referred to as alternative hypothesis. If we accept H0, then we are rejecting HA. If we are reject H0, then we are accept HA. For H0 ratio mu is equal to mu H0 is equal to 100. We may consider three possible alternative hypotheses as following below. Here, given that the data alternative hypothesis and to be read as follows. HA ratio mu is not equal to mu H0 means the alternative hypothesis is that the population mean is not equal to 100. It may be more or less than 100. HA ratio mu is greater than H mu H0, then the alternative hypothesis is that population mean is greater than 100. The third condition is HA ratio mu is less than mu H0. It means the alternative hypothesis is that population mean is less than 100. So there are three conditions of alternative hypothesis. Again I repeat. HA ratio mu is not equal to mu H0. Then alternative hypothesis is that the population mean is not equal to 100. It may be more than or less than 100. HA ratio mu is greater than mu H0. Then the alternative hypothesis is that population mean is greater than 100. The third condition is HA ratio mu is less than mu H0. Then the alternative hypothesis is that the population mean is less than 100. So this is the third criteria. So the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis are chosen before the sample is drawn. In the choice of null hypothesis, the following considerations are kept in view. Point A, alternative hypothesis is usually the one which one wishes to prove, and the null hypothesis is the one which one wishes to disprove. Thus, a null hypothesis represents the hypothesis we are trying to reject, and alternative hypothesis represent all the other possibilities. Point B, if the rejection of a certain hypothesis when it is actually true involves great risk, it is taken as null hypothesis, because then the probability of rejecting it when it is true and is denoted by the symbol alpha, the level of significance which is chosen very small. The third point is null hypothesis should always be a specific hypothesis. It should not state about the approximately a certain value. So come to the level of significance. Point B. There is a very important concept in the constant of hypothesis testing. It is always some percentage, usually 5%, which should be chosen with great care, thought and the reason. In case we take significance level at 5%, then this implies that H0 will be rejected. If hypothesis is of the type mu is equal to mu H0, then we call such a hypothesis as simple hypothesis. But if it is the type mu is not equal to mu H0, mu is greater than mu H0, mu is less than mu H0, then we call it as composite hypothesis. So when the sample result has less than 0.05 probability of occurring if H0 is true. In other words, the 5% level of significance means that researchers is willing to take as much as a 5% risk of rejecting the null hypothesis when it is H0 happens to be true. Thus, the significance level is maximum value of the probability of rejecting of H0 when it is true and is usually determined in advance before testing the hypothesis. The third point is decision rule or test of hypothesis. So given a hypothesis H0 and an alternative hypothesis HA, we make a rule which is known as decision rule, according to which if we accept H0 and reject HA, or reject H0 and accept HA. For instance, if H0 is that a certain lot is good, there are very few defective items in it, against HA, that the lot is not good. So there are too many defective items in it. Then we must decide the number of items to be tested and the criterion for accepting or rejecting the hypothesis. We might test 10 items in a lot and plan our decision saying that if there are none or only one defective items among the 10, we will accept H0, otherwise we will reject H0. This sort of the basis is known as decision rule. Any question? Any query? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.